You're probably a young person watching this video who wants to get out and see the world. Perhaps more specifically, you want to go to Italy. But with this dream, you have probably come up with some reasonable excuses as to why you can't do this. You might be thinking to yourself, it's too expensive, you don't have time, or you have too many responsibilities that are holding you where you're at right now. Now, while most of these excuses may sound reasonable, they're still just excuses. Because really, if you think about it, no matter who you are, no matter how old you are, no matter what you're doing in life, there's nothing physically stopping you from going online, buying a plane ticket, and just getting on a plane. But you might still be thinking to yourself, that's impossible. There's no way that I can just pack up all my things and travel to Italy. That's stupid. That sounds crazy. But believe it or not, this is actually something that any hardworking, dedicated person can do, no matter what their current situation is in life. But what's going to make this 100 times easier in this whole equation is if you aren't married, you don't have kids, and you don't own a business. Basically, if you don't have any of those things in your life, you're pretty much a free person. Meaning that pretty much whenever you want, you could quit your job, you could find another job, you could work out all the loose ends you'd have to work out and move to Italy. It's just that easy. Most of the things that end up stopping us are just mental limitations or barriers. And of course, with any change this big in your life, there are things that you have to plan for and things that you have to adjust to. But as Julius Caesar said, preparation is everything. Okay, so now let's talk about how to actually do this. Okay, let's say, first of all, that for example, you're a younger person, okay? You have either just finished high school, you're in college, or you're currently working a job out of high school. Now, let's say that you work the crappiest job out there. You work at some fast food joint, you work at Walmart, some kind of retail store, whatever. You're probably going to be making minimum wage, okay? Even if you're making minimum wage, and even if you have student loans that you have to pay off, you can still do this. You can still make enough money, you can still save up enough money to go there. Now with the student loans, you can pay those off in advance, because obviously if you're not made of money, you can't pay it off all at once. But this can be applied to any debt that you can think of. If you have car loans, if you have a house payment, whatever it is, you can pay it off months in advance. And then technically it's not really holding you there. Okay, so now that you have all your debts paid off, you have just quit your job or you're on vacation from your job, and you just bought your tickets, you have all your bags packed, and you're all ready to go. What happens next? So now you just boarded your plane and you're getting ready to fly over to Italy. Now let's talk about all of the expenses that you'll face once you've landed, which is food, transportation, lodging, laundry, cell phones, and security. Like I said, if you don't have a wife or kids, it really is just that simple. Those are all of your expenses that you'll face once you're there. Okay, let's talk about the first expense, food. Now, food in Italy is going to be about the same price as if you're coming from America or Canada, or cheaper. But this can be kind of a complicated subject because, of course, when you're in Italy, there's going to be different kinds of foods, and the amount of calories and the actual amount of food that people eat over there is not as much as in the West. So this is something that you'll have to take into account, but I would say overall, even if you're eating the same portion sizes as you're eating in America or Canada, the price is still going to be about the same. And the only other difficulty that you'll have to face is that obviously there's different kinds of food. So you won't have all of the processed foods that you get here in America that are all made in a lab or are frozen, that kind of thing. So of course you're going to have to budget out a little bit more time out of your day to actually cook these meals. But of course, this is going to be better for you in the end because it's extremely beneficial to eat fresh food as opposed to eating processed food. So this is a good thing. Overall, food in Italy is going to be a better experience for you. It's going to be a better life change. And lastly, on food, the last point that I want to make is that it is cheaper. I may have already said this, but it is cheaper to make your own meals as opposed to going to restaurants. So it may be tempting when you're first over there, like for the first 1 or 2 weeks to just go to restaurants, because you're out walking around in the streets and you see all of these food stalls or these little stands of people trying to sell street food. It can be very tempting, but try to keep those things to a minimum if you're trying to do this cheaply. And if you're planning to backpack through Italy, you of course won't have any means to cook your food. But don't worry, because Italian grocery stores offer many dense fresh food products like cheeses, meats, cured meats, breads, fresh fruits and vegetables, pretty much everything that you would need to have a healthy diet but not actually have to cook anything. And this is a very simple, obvious tip, but of course if you make your meals ahead of time, if you're backpacking, you will save time and you won't have to be cooking out and about in the middle of your day, which is of course going to help you. Alright, now let's talk about transportation. You might find yourself worrying a lot about transportation if you're coming from America because, let's face it, if you're from anywhere in America that's west of New York City, the public transportation is usually not very good. As a matter of fact, in most smaller cities, it's terrible. It's almost non-existent. However, in Italy, the public transportation all over Italy is almost effortless. The trains, buses, and taxis are all way up there compared to what you'll get in the United States. So this really isn't something that you'll have to worry about. Now, Italy as a country is going to be much smaller than your Western country. So the infrastructural layout is going to be relatively confined compared to where you're coming from. So this means that you won't always need to get in a car and drive long distances on highway to get to where you want to go. However, you will still have to cover some great distances, and the best way to go about doing this is of course trains. Now, trains are not quite the cheapest option, but they are still very close in price range if you compare it to taxis or Ubers or that kind of thing. So in the end, it really depends how picky you are and how much of a comfort level you want, because of course it's going to be much more hassle-free to just buy a train ticket and hop on a train as opposed to waiting for an Uber driver or waiting for a taxi, this kind of thing. So keep that in mind. Alright, now let's talk about cheap Italian hotels. Yeah, there really are no cheap Italian hotels. But don't worry, because hotels are actually going to be the least convenient option if you're one of those people who's looking to travel Italy and see the most out of your trip. Instead, I would recommend going to hostels or couch surfing. Now, couch surfing, if you don't know, is a website or an app. It's kind of a general term, but it means that you're paying a small fine to somebody in order to sleep on their couch. And a hostel, in case you don't know, is basically like a hotel, but instead of you just getting your own room, you have to share it with like 5 other people. Now, I know what you're thinking, that sounds terrible, right? But it's really not as bad as you think. Number one, because the people that are going to be staying in this room with you are going to have passports, because you need a passport in order to stay in most hostels. So last time I checked, it's pretty difficult for criminals to get passports. And secondly, it's a great way to meet new people from like all over the world who are doing the same thing that you are. So the cheapest option, of course, is going to be the couch surfing option. Now, while it is the cheapest, it's not something that you'll get all over Italy, and of course it's not the safest. So I would just recommend staying in hostels and camping if you're going to be backpacking. And the last point that I want to make on living expenses is that, if you're traveling to Italy, like for the first time, just try to make friends with as many people as you can. Because obviously next time you go to Italy, you'll have somewhere to stay, possibly. Alright, laundry. Laundry is a bit of a tricky one, whether you are going to be backpacking or not. Because think about it, if you're coming from America or Canada, one of these Western countries, laundry is something that is extremely easy for most people, and it's not even something that we think about. We have washing machines, we have dryers, it's extremely simple. However, in Italy, most people don't have dryers. A lot of people have washers, but dryers are not something that you're going to find. And of course, if you're not staying at somebody's house and you're backpacking or staying at a hostel, you will have to do your own laundry. So this is something that is pretty foreign to most people in the modern generation, but it's actually not as bad as you think. So you're going to have to hand wash your laundry. Now, this is actually a good thing, this is actually a smart thing for Italian people, because obviously they save a lot of money. Because washers use up a whole lot of water and dryers use up a whole lot of electricity. So, what you'll have to do is, once you land in Italy, you'll have to go to a grocery store or some kind of general store, and you'll have to buy some laundry soap, but not the liquid kind. This here is an example. This is actually not Italian laundry soap. I actually ordered this from China because I like to do hand washing laundry here in America because it saves me money. But anyways, yeah, it's that simple. You can fill up a sink with water, or if you don't have a sink, just use a plastic tub, or even just pull it out in the shower, and you can wash your clothes in the shower, and then you can hang them up to dry on the shower rack or on a rack, or over a tree branch or a string, or like whatever you can find. And then if you can iron your clothes, because obviously dryers do that for you here in America, and you're not going to have dryers when you're over there. So you can iron them if you can, but obviously if you can't, it's not the end of the world. Alright, so cell phones. When you're going to Italy, obviously the cheapest way to go is to buy a prepaid phone once you land in Italy, and just put minutes onto the phone. Now, if your cell phone plan from the country that you're coming from includes this, includes like international stuff, then just do that. But most people watching this video who aren't made of money are not going to have that option. So there are, just like in America or Canada, there are a plethora of different carriers who do prepaid phone options, and you basically just buy the phone, and then you buy one of those little cards that you can put airtime on your phone with, and it's just that simple. Now, you might be thinking that you don't need a phone because you're just going on a trip and you're not going to actually be living in Italy, but if you're backpacking, or if you're by yourself, basically, there's lots of stuff that can happen to you where you would have to call emergency services or call an ambulance or whatever have you. Because, you could just be walking down a road or through the countryside and get attacked by a dog, or you could get robbed by some refugees, or you could get hit by a car. Like anything can happen. So it's definitely something that you want to take into account, and I would highly recommend that you get yourself a cell phone when you're over there. And the last thing that I want to talk about is just kind of a miscellaneous one, and I called it security. Now, what I basically mean by security is going to be locks and stuff. You're obviously going to want a lock when you're staying at the hostel, because you want to put your stuff in a locker and then lock it up so that people don't steal your things. It's just common sense, right? And then of course you want to buy locks for your bags and all that kind of stuff. So, that's something that you're going to have to take into account with cost, but obviously locks aren't that expensive. But anyways, just to help you not forget about that. Alright, so in conclusion, that is basically everything that you need to know in order to travel or live in Italy cheaply. Now, everything that I just gave you in this list is basically what you need to know to live there cheaply, not just travel. But of course, if you're going to live there, your savings are going to run out and you're going to want to find some kind of job when you're over there. This can be a very complicated and daunting task to most people, but in my next video I'm going to talk about what options you actually have as an English-speaking Westerner, and what kind of certifications you need, and all those kinds of things in order to teach English over in Italy. Anyways, I'll see you in that next video, and thank you very much for watching this video. If you like this video, please give it a like, as it really helps me out. And if you feel the need, subscribe. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. You're probably a young